Hey guys, welcome back to the nest. Hope you're all keeping well. Hope you're all excited for a great Easter. I know I am. Why is it every time I make one of these videos it's so close to a holiday? I never tell. Probably just because I need to start organising a schedule. So I do whenever I finish a year. I should take a few days. I take a few days and then I look at the. I should look at the schedule because I don't want to be only doing it on holidays. If you know what I mean. We've got another movie from 1973. Can't believe that was 50 years ago. But yeah, 1973. The film is American Graffiti. Now, the director, I'll just say that, see, every time I come across these movies, I get told that any director, and some directors and actors are actually quite important names because I think I'll be familiar with them in the future. But the director of this movie is a guy called George Lucas. Funnily enough, even though he directed the film, it was actually produced by Francis Ford Coppola, the guy who directed The Godfather in the previous year that I did. But yeah, they both worked together on it, and I gotta say, they've made such a great film, so they have. For those of you who don't know what it's about, it is set in the 1960s, and I think it's set in the year 1962 because on the radio, I do hear a lot of the radio, this guy Wolfman, hey, it's the Wolfman. They bring up the Beach Boys. They say that the Beach Boys are new, and obviously this is 1962, whenever they were starting to become into prominence. I love the Beach Boys. I've not listened to a lot of their songs, but they're a great band. They're still going to this day. A lot of those bands, like the Beatles and, actually the Animals are still going, but the Beatles, the Kinks, the Doors, a lot of them haven't really lasted long. I do know it's because Jim Morrison's death, and then Paul McCartney stepped out of the Beatles and they couldn't do it without him, and it is what it is. Not all good things must come to an end. Nothing lasts forever. But they're a group of teenagers who are all celebrating their last night of summer vacation before a lot of them go off to college. The main character is a guy named Curt Henderson, and he's played by a guy called Richard Dreyfuss. Now I found out that he was actually picked out of all 100 actors who actually auditioned for him, and Lucas picked him out because he analysed his character so well whenever he looked into it. And then this guy Ronnie Hard, he's playing a guy called Steve, and he is definitely going away to university. Now Curt is unsure. Let's just say, guys, it also reflects in real life. Some people want to go to university, some don't. I tell you what, even though I'm doing an HND, whenever I finish it next year, I'm not going to go to university. I just don't know if it'll be for me. Like, I'll tell you what, I'll probably just try and look into getting into the industry. I might probably have to move country next year, to be honest, and find an agent there. But let's just wait and see what happens. I can't just put all my eggs in one basket. But Steve is definitely wanting to go to university, but he has issues with his girlfriend, who actually turns out to be Curt's sister, Laurie, and he says, we'll still be together, but we can see different people while we're away. Isn't that cheating? It's the biggest load of shit I've ever heard. This guy looks like a stereotypical nerd. His name's Toad. But he's a well-meaning guy, and I just feel so sorry for him. He has a cool car, but he's only been given to Steve, look after. He'll have to give it back to him when he visits for Christmas. But I guess he can pick up the ladies with that. One of the main characters is like this big thug-looking guy. I don't know why there were so many thugs portrayed in these movies that I've seen so far. But yeah, Johnny Milner, and he says, I ain't going to some dumbass, lousy, prestigious college. I'm staying right here. Well, he does manage to pick up one girl, but it's quite a young girl. He doesn't get the attention he wants. He technically babysits this girl called Carol, and they don't. I'm gonna have to look up my notes on this, but yeah, I love how everyone's just so obsessed with the cars and the driving and everything. And I think it's this guy's like the main antagonist, this guy called Bob Falda. He just seems like an absolute asshole, so he does. He's played by a guy named Harrison Ford. Now this guy is actually, I've been told to really look out for this guy because he's going to be a big star in the coming years. Um, but Curt, he decides to make it his quest overnight to look for this blonde who drives a white Thunderbird. Well, a T-Bird is what they call it in this movie. Because he's so attracted to her. Despite looking quite young, he keeps on hearing that she's married to someone who owns a jewellery store. But I think this girl is trying to put him off, and he accidentally says the wrong thing to these guys who his driver has a crush on, and she just kicks him out of the car, and then he basically just has to walk it. So I guess that's why you have to pay close attention to what you say to your friends, because you're going to say stuff you can't come back with, you've no lift, and shit just hits the fan basically. But it's just because, you know, the blonde girl has basically looked him in the eye. Someone wants me! But yeah, I was saying about Steve and but Toad, you know, he's actually managed to pick up a very attractive young girl called Debbie. You know, she's probably just really interested in the car, but the thing he makes the biggest mistake. He could just tell her that the car isn't his, but he just says, you know, that he's using it for another car. He's no bloody car at all. Don't be a dick, bro. Just tell her the truth. That's what I do. I'm an honest person. If I ever meet a girl, you know, I'm always going to be honest with her and just say, like, you know, here's the thing, guys, I can't actually drive yet. I'm thinking about getting back into it, but, you know, it was just quite hard for me, so it was. Very panicky, so it is. Apparently it's the toughest thing you'll ever do, but yeah, Debbie, I think she's really into Toad because, you know, even though he's, like, the stereotypical nerd, he's a nice guy, so he is. And, you know, he'll stick up for her, like this guy who was having a date with her, like, you know, he sticks up for her and says, you know, hey, don't you try to be a smartass, unless you want a knuckle sandwich. But he wants to prove himself by trying to get himself some alcohol. I do remember in America that the age of drinking, you have to be 21 to drink. You know, it's different over here. It's you have to be 18 to buy alcohol, but it sucks. Like, luckily, I'm 22 years old. You know, if I'm in America, you know, I can legally buy alcohol, but that's not how it is. And, you know, he actually manages to get alcohol himself by getting a guy to run in and steal. I think the guy who he asks to get the alcohol steals it because the shopkeeper runs out and he shoots him. But they managed to get away with the alcohol in the end, you know, after asking for beef jerky and combs. I gotta admit, guys, I've had beef jerky before. It is so spicy. And something that Johnny says that's very very touching in this movie. Rock and roll hasn't been the same ever since Buddy Holly died. I don't know if you guys know, but, you know, Buddy Holly was this rockabilly musician. He was killed in a plane crash, so he was, you know, along with Richie Valens and all those other big stars. You know, it was called The Day That Music Died. But that's what I like about this movie, you know, there's so much rock music, you know, relevant to the 1960s, you know, with the Beach Boys and Chuck Berry and, you know, Buddy Holly, you know, because I did recognise Johnny B. Good. And then this group of greasers, actually picks up Curt. They're called the Pharaohs, and they give him a task to do, which is basically try and steal something and damage a cop car, so they let them into the group. Looks like in the end he actually turns out to be very useful, and he actually does end up getting them accepted in the group. Johnny and Carl have fun, you know, after they get pranked by getting water balloons thrown at them. They actually damage the other person's car by spreading shaving foam all over it. But, you know, sadly, Johnny's night out with Carl comes to an end and he drops her home, but then he meets up with his friends, so he does. I wonder if this movie was actually shot all, you know, at night time. I say it would be, but that they were probably so tired, you know, staying up all the hours of the night, and apparently that's why they look tired as the movie progresses. Unfortunately, the Steve's car gets stolen. They're left without a car while they're out in the fields, and then they meet up with Steve after he accidentally says the wrong thing to Laurie, and, you know, frankly, he gets what he deserves for being a dick there. But it turns out Laurie was wrong, and, you know, she was too hard on him. She actually does want to make amends with him, and in the end, Steve decides not to go to university. I love how Johnny actually won the race against Falda. You know, boom, blew the car up. Curt's fully accepted by the Pharaohs. You know, Toad actually ends up with Debbie, but looks like he can't handle alcohol after all. LOL! But Curt actually ends up trying to meet up with the Wolfman, who will hopefully give a shout out to the blonde girl who drives the T-Bird, because he actually ends up deciding, I'm going to be going to university the next day, and you know, he just wants her to know that he likes her. But he also gets offered a popsicle. I gotta say, I really like the guy, the Wolfman in charge of the radio, because he does seem like a nice man. But in the end, Curt actually ends up going to university. He leaves his friends and his parents behind. I was surprised to see that Curt and Laurie's parents, they were the only parents you see in the end. Even though it's not based off a real film, I was surprised to see that it actually reveals the fate of the characters. Johnny was killed by a drunk driver 2 years later. Not now, not now. I'm in the middle of something. Curt ended up being a writer in Canada. Steve ended up being an insurance guy in Modesto, and Toad ended up missing in action. But did he end up in the army or something? I don't know. But I gotta say, I really enjoyed this movie, guys. You know, I think I need to keep an eye out for George Lucas and Richard Dreyfuss, and especially Harrison Ford, because I've been told that these are big names for the movies that I'm going to be watching in the coming years. But I gotta say, I enjoyed American Graffiti. 1973 is looking quite well so far. Hope you guys are familiar with the next movies I'm going to do. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, guys. I love you all to death. Keep supporting the channel. Don't forget to like, favourite, comment what you would like to see next, subscribe, and I shall see you guys in the next video, which will be tomorrow night, because I do need to upload, because you know, I've got something going on tomorrow night. Don't worry, nothing's bad, but you know, it's a big night. But thank you so much for watching, guys. Happy Easter to you. I shall see you in the next video tomorrow night. Love you all to death.